how CPUs have a role to play in deep learning. Now let us discuss some more use cases. Now there are, as you know, like CNNs are used for image processing, okay, and LSTM, they are good for sequence models, okay. Whenever, for example, when you want to do like video analysis, then analyzing one single image is not sufficient, right? You have to analyze multiple images. So that's why when you want to do image understanding, that will require using both CNN and LSTM. Okay. So here, general purpose design will be better than over specialized design, because this is like this is an example of heterogeneous DNA, which has multiple types of neural networks. One is convolutional neural network, another is recurrent neural network. So if you use one accelerator for CNN, one accelerator for LSTM, this may not work out. Okay, one accelerator for CNN, one accelerator for RNN, it will not work out. So that's why it is better that we use just a general purpose compute engine which works for both. It may not give best performance for both, right? For example, like suppose you use an accelerator. Suppose one CNN accelerator, I call it AC, and you use one accelerator for RNN, you call it RC. Okay, so one option is you have both, and another option is you just have a CPU. Okay, so because like here area budget is cut to half, then this AC may not be very powerful, and against area budget is cut to half, this RC may not be very powerful. Actually, it should be called AR. Yeah, it doesn't matter. AR. So this is accelerator for recurrent neural network. AR. Now, plus you have to run this CNN on this and RNN on this. Then there is a data transfer overhead. That's why it is just better to use CPU, which will give good, a reasonable performance for CNN and a reasonable performance for RNN. Similarly, there are devices like IoT devices. IoT means Internet of Things devices and wearables. So anybody knows what is an example of a wearable device? What is the meaning of a wearable device? Subham? You don't know about wearable device?
Sir, like smartwatches and...
Yes, smartwatches. Yeah, wearable means something which you can wear. Any device, any electronic device that you can wear. That's smartwatches. Yeah. So now they have tight power and area budget. Okay. So who can explain me why? Anupam, can you please explain why they have tight power budget, tight area budget? Anubhav, who can explain? Let us see.
So it should be within a certain limit of the area, because it has to be wearable. We have to wear that, and also it consumes the low power as well, because it has to measure the heart rate and the something.
Yeah. Plus, it has to run on the battery. Right. Similarly, for example, suppose there are pacemakers in the heart, and sometimes some electronic devices are installed. Now, you can't always, cut open the heart and again replace that battery, right? Maybe once in 10 years you want to replace that, or at least once in 5 years. If every third day, or every, like, I'm just joking and exaggerating it, if every week you have to replace it, then how many surgeries you will have to do? Similarly, for example, even for the smartwatch, all you have is your smartwatch must fit in this area. It can't be like very like a smartphone size thing put here, right? It has to be like, it has to look like a normal watch. So now your area is very small. Plus power, if it is dissipating a lot of power, you see the thermal problem. So now, because of this, a smartwatch chip cannot host separate accelerators for speech, audio, image, and video processing. But it cannot be, maybe it will be difficult. It can, because you can try to push everything together, but it may not be very efficient. Whereas for like mobile phone, we did see that it had so many different types of accelerators. But doing same thing on the smartwatch, maybe slightly more difficult. Maybe tomorrow it may be possible, but today we are speaking from today's perspective. As of now, it looks very difficult how it will have so many different accelerators within a very, very small power budget, very small area budget. And here is the IRIS accelerator. I have not discussed IRIS in this course. IRIS is an accelerator for CNN. Okay. This IRIS accelerator has 30 times higher area than Cortex A35 core. Anybody knows what is Cortex A35 core? What is the ISA here? I've used the word Cortex a lot in this course. I have not discussed the architecture of Cortex, but Cortex course we have discussed a lot.
So I think this is also that same ARM processor.
Yes, yes.
This is the RISC
ARM processor. So, see, in mobile domain, we all talk about ARM only. x86 is not a player in the mobile domain. So, because we are talking about low power processor, that's why we will talk about ARM processor. The processor with ARM IC. That's why. See, the point is, Cortex A35 is a general purpose code. So if you want to use an accelerator like this, it will have a lot of area. I mean, only this one. It's not always true, but at least for this example, you can see this. Now, another thing is accelerators are not optimal on all the matrices. So first thing is designing an accelerator takes a lot of time. Suppose you are a software company. Now, every software company can't design their own hardware. They have to do something else. For the other thing, they have to just purchase it from the market or like offload it or outsource it. So most companies can't see. Big companies like Google has made their own accelerator. Facebook is probably making one. Amazon is making one. Microsoft is making one. Fine. But what about medium-sized company? Everybody can't make their own accelerator, right? So they have to use whatever is available in the market. It takes lot of time and massive investment. You have to get right engineers. And nowadays with Corona, everything is shut. You may have done everything, designed it, but who will verify it? So that's why I'm talking to a company. They said we don't have somebody having this skill. Can you help us find out? So, and then DL domain itself is fast changing, right? After every 2 or 3 months, you see a new very prominent neural network algorithm coming in. Now your accelerator has to be adapt to that. Now accelerators pose complexities of heterogeneity, custom software, and programming support. I hope you agree with this, because I may design accelerator. Suppose my company is very good in designing accelerator for CNN. Your company is very good in designing accelerator for RNN. Now, who will have the integration part? I may design my own software. You may design your own software. Both of them, when you put together, it doesn't work properly, or it will require separate expenditures for licenses. Right? It becomes very, very murky. Right? It becomes very complex. And integration into existing systems. If your code is 1 million lines of code, now who will change it and bring it and integrate that with the new system? Who will rewrite that code to be written on a new hardware? Now, achieving economies of scale is difficult, right? And business continuity is challenging. So all these practical challenges come up, right? At a large scale. Suppose a company may have designed but there may be some research startup which may have designed, but they are designing only 5,000 systems. But the need is for suppose 2 billion. Then suddenly you can't scale that, right? That company will be a small company. And updating entire services from CPUs to accelerator has a very, very high overhead. It's not that easy. So that's why large scale companies can make and maintain their accelerator. Making is not sufficient. You have to maintain it. For every update in the software, you have to update your hardware and vice versa. That's very, very costly for many companies. That's why for most of the companies, either CPU or GPU is the most feasible option. Okay, because they are relatively more general purpose and availability wise, software support wise, these are good. Also, let us see at low base sizes. So TPU, GPU need a large base size to achieve high throughput. Okay, but in many real-time inference scenarios, we can't use large base size, because when you increase the base size, latency also increases. Okay, and CPU can provide you comparable latency at low batch sizes. That means when the batch size is low, CPU latency may not be very poor. It may be comparable. At high base size, CPU throughput may not be comparable with the GPU and TPU. TPU and GPU, they will provide you more throughput, fine. But what about the latency, especially at the low base size? So at low base size, you're not able to use all the resources of TPU, right? TPU has a massive systolic array. You have to keep it busy. For that, you need a high base size. That's why TPU is not good for low base size. CPU is okay. CPU can work well in low base size. And on a cloud, accelerators have higher usage cost than GPU. So this why, that's why it is important to keep a balance about not just, as I said in the last lecture, you have to think about performance, you have to think about the cost and all the other metrics, availability, software integration, long-term maintenance, and so on. So these are some of the papers from industry, different industry for DLL CPUs. And I've read them. I have a survey paper here, this survey on deep learning CPUs. If you're interested, you can see that.